Our ancient sacred text today is from Mark 1, 29 to 39. Upon leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered Simon and Andrew's house with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and immediately they told Jesus about her. Jesus went over to her, took her by the hand, and helped her up, and the fever left her. Then she went about her work. After sunset, as evening drew on, they brought to Jesus all who were ill and possessed by demons. Everyone in the town crowded around the door. Jesus healed many who were sick with different diseases and cast out many demons. But Jesus would not permit the demons to speak because they knew who he was. Rising early the next morning, Jesus went off to a lonely place in the desert and prayed there. Simon and some companions managed to find Jesus and said to him, "Everybody's looking for you." Jesus said to them, "Let us move on to the neighboring villages so that I can proclaim the good news there also. This is what I have come to do." So Jesus went into their synagogues, proclaiming the good news and expelling demons throughout the whole of Galilee. La palabra de Dios.
All right, well, our texts this morning, destiny. It's a big word, big lofty idea, destiny. To assume that we are called to something, to assume that we have a special vocation. Take it off. Okay.
For the rest of the church.
I think that might be easier if we take it off. Okay. Destiny. Call. Vocation. Big ideas, lofty ideas, and a little bit intimidating. Sometimes I can feel that when I'm having a one-to-one with somebody, and some of the questions are, they get kind of meaty about why we're here, what our self-interest is, what we care about. But Jesus says in our text today, this is what I came here to do. Destiny. And what exactly does he mean by that? Well, the text tells us that he goes on to preach and to cast out demons, gaining fame in Galilee. So I think we're meant to understand that this was his purpose: preaching, teaching, revealing the divine through healing, through casting out of the demons. And really, this is our last Sunday in the season of Epiphany. And the Epiphany is about revelation. Show upon, or reveal upon, appear upon. That's the direct translation of the Greek. And if we think about all of the texts that we look at throughout the season of Epiphany, it starts with the three wise ones. Here they are. Following a star to find the child, to find the Christ child manifested in human form. Then the following two texts are about Jesus calling disciples, and then it's about Jesus healing and having miracles, and the crowds begin to follow Jesus. And then next week we will find the transfiguration when Jesus is revealed to his disciples in full form as God, with these blazing robes and Elijah on one side, Moses on one side. So you can see how we are building toward this revelation, this revealing of Jesus. It's his destiny. And it's something he can't necessarily turn away from. Thinking about the Garden of Gethsemane, right? He prays, "Take this cup from me," but he can't have it taken away. And our text today has kind of a mini Garden in Gethsemane moment, we can imagine. We talked about it a little with the kiddos. First, Jesus heals Simon's mother-in-law, and then he casts out demons and does healings for, it sounds like the whole city is crowded outside of his door. And he heals person after person after person. And that's a lot. Maybe something about it unsettled him, because in the middle of the night, he gets up and he goes to a secluded place and he prays. Have you ever noticed that Jesus goes to secluded places a lot? He goes to the wilderness a lot. Actually, I remember the story of the feeding of the 5,000. He's actually trying to run away from the crowds, and then they find him, and so he's like, okay, fine, I'll feed you. That's not really what he's like, but the introvert in me recognizes that need to recover from being surrounded by so many people. But more than that, I wonder about the emotional and the spiritual toll that is weighing upon him. So much pain, so much need for restoration, for healing, and frankly, him being unable to heal it all. Because his disciples follow him to where he is in this secluded place, and they say, come back! The people need you to heal them more. But he can't do it all. Even the Son of God has limitations. He cannot heal it all in this moment. And there are people lined up outside the door, stretched for her. It makes me think a little bit about Joanna Macy's Great Unraveling. And I've spoken about this a little bit earlier in this Epiphany season. This is speaking to the pain and the grief and the despair that we humans feel when we really come to terms with the gravity, the weight, and the reality that we have done irreparable damage to our earth. Some things can't be undone. So here's the thing, when we start to realize that things are lining up outside the door, because there's that, but then there's also other things that can be undone. For example, we can't undo the trauma that Trump caused to many immigrant communities, for example, in unveiling the nasty xenophobia and fear and racism that was just beneath the surface here in our community, here in our culture. We can't undo the tens of thousands of Palestinians who have already been killed in their own land, the effect of genocide, that effect that it's having on the souls of folks who remain, the people around the world who are having to witness this. We can't undo the effects of that, of what ripples might take place a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. The Nakba happened 75 years ago, and it's still right here today. The Holocaust happened 80 years ago, and it's still right here today. So I can keep going. I can keep listing the things that need healing outside of our doors. But I won't. You've heard me speak many times. You all can probably name many things. But there is an unraveling happening. And Jesus says, this is what I came here to do. To preach, to tell the truth, to heal, to cast out demons. So I have to admit, I went into a little bit of a rabbit hole this week about demons. I didn't realize, Amy told me that last week Jules preached about demons, I didn't catch it, so I don't know exactly what she said, but there was a topic of demons happening then too. I was struck in this text by the appearance of the demons and Jesus' role in casting them out in his ministry. It's like, when you see something again, but for the first time, I hadn't really been paying attention to the demons. And for a lot of progressive Christians, we tend not to. We focus on the healing of illnesses and preaching truth to power and feeding the masses, but demons, we don't really talk about. It's a little too maybe out there in our post-Enlightenment world. Maybe it's like we don't want to read the Bible quite so literally. Fair enough. But I actually discovered in my research this week that the words for angels and demons appear more times in the New Testament than the words love and sin. So we have to take them seriously. These figures are playing a role in the stories They're pointing us toward truths that are important for us to pay attention to. They're different, though, demons, than the way that we think about them in our culture. They're not like these Gothic gremlins, that are carved in stone on the side of Notre Dame. I'm going to get a little bit, let's see where do I do that next? Nope. The Gospel of Mark. So we're going to talk a little bit about what daemon, or daemonis in ancient Greek, what that meant. And in Mark uses that word actually a little bit differently than his contemporaries in the ancient Near East. So Mark really only speaks about demons, and actually most New Testament texts only speak about demons in terms of with a negative connotation, as possessing people, and Mark uses the word daemon interchangeably with the term for unclean spirit. But daemon in the Greek simply means something more like a lesser god. So there's a conceptualization that a hero or a leader, when they died, their spirit became a demon. They ran the gamut. Some demons were, more negatively connoted. There was one well-renowned demon in the culture that was love. So there are examples in ancient literature of all kinds of demons, but again, in Mark, we're speaking mostly about a negative connotation. And we actually don't really know, because Mark deviates a bit from what the ancient Near East connotation with demon was, exactly what was meant by it. What we do know is that they possessed people, and Jesus cast them out. We can make meanings of demons by paying attention to what else Jesus is doing in Mark alongside the casting out of demons. Healing illnesses, feeding people, preaching, telling truth to power. And we can make meaning of demons by noticing what happens to people after the demon is thrown out. They are restored to community. They are brought back into community. They're healed. They're able to live and move and be in community again. This was his destiny. This is what I came here to do. Destiny. Octavia Butler says in her book, The Parable of the Sower, this is our modern sacred text for today, the destiny of earthseed is to take root among the stars. It's a beautiful phrase, especially in this season of Epiphany, when we begin the season by following a star. But it's also a particularly terrifying one, potentially, for our moment today, where we find ourselves in history. Because she actually literally means that, to find our place. I think I can put the other microphone back on. Fingers crossed. To find our place. Does this work? Hello? Okay. Yes? Okay. Because we are at the midst of a great ecological unraveling. Our world. We are destroying our own home. And this text really is suggesting, inside of the world that Octavia Butler created, that we are to live and thrive on new earths. So The Parable of the Sower is a futuristic, dystopian science fiction novel. It's set after or in the midst of the destruction of the planet as a result of capitalist greed. And it's set in the United States, and in this context, the main character it lives in California, and the U.S. has dissolved into states or city-states that are at war for the remaining few resources. And our text is also the sacred text of Earthseed, which is the religion followed by the people in the story. And their central belief is that God is change. It goes, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. So in this way and in this book, Butler is suggesting that our destiny is to lean into change, to accept change. Because only in accepting change can we begin to direct change. The destiny of Earthseed is also to become new beings and explore new questions, not to fear change, but to shape it. This community has done that before. I'm thinking about the nurse log. This community, when you were all, many of you at the beach on the coast years ago, and looking at that log and seeing a tree spring out of it, a seedling, and thinking about what good compost that log was for the tree that was growing out of it, and wondering what good compost Redeemer Lutheran Church could be for this community, for what is now, for Salt and Light Lutheran Church and for Levin Community. You all took inspiration from that new life that sprouted from the log, and you said, we can do that too. Directing change. So Jesus said, this is what I came here to do. It was his destiny. This was the change he sought. Preaching, healing, casting out of demons. And I think that when we see him to step away, secluded in prayer, it is the work of processing the grief, of witnessing a great unraveling in his own time, of needing to come to terms with his own limitations and the reality of what he was seeing and experiencing in order to be able to arrive at the conclusion of this is what I came here to do, to heal, to preach. So I guess the question that I'm left with today, I have many questions, but one of them is, what are the demons we face today? Where are the places of pain for us inside, in our own hearts, in our beings? Right? Thinking about it as on a sacred spiral, starting with our inner demons, our self-doubt, our internalized depressions, the substances and the thought patterns that we are addicted to. And then how do those demons show up in relationship with others? How do they show up in community? How do they ripple outward into systems? Into the belief systems that we create collectively, into the stories that we tell ourselves and each other, into the ways that we organize ourselves, our policies, until, to some degree, they're outside of our control, and we must organize collectively to shift them again. So I'm going to break the wall a little bit. I'm going to ask for one word or a phrase. Do any demons come to mind for you? Can you just call them out? Fear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Doom scrolling. Yeah. Control. Yes. That's a big one. Machismo and patriarchy. We start with naming them. We start with telling the truth. Demons are cast out when we begin to tell the truth. When we name them, they begin to shrivel. And they are cast out when we work together within ourselves, within community, for healing and for restoration. So this last Sunday in Epiphany, as Jesus is being revealed to us in his fullness, I wonder about what is being revealed to you today, about who you are and your fullness, and about who we can be together. And in order to become that, what demons do we need to cast out within ourselves and within our community and within our broader world? So that's your question for our one-to-ones. This is a tradition in our community to turn to one another, sometimes someone you know and sometimes someone you don't, and we take about 10 minutes in the middle of our service for conversation that is beyond, how was your week? It's optional. We have coffee, we have tea, we have sunshine and a garden. So folks are always welcome to step out, but we take 10 minutes now to turn to one another and ask, what's being revealed to you today about who you are? And in order to become that, what demons do you need to cast out? That's it. Okay, 10 minutes.